The galaxy remembered Queen Seralith only as a failure. Once, her name had carried fear. Entire star systems had bowed when her fleets arrived. Her people had called her the star-crowned queen, ruler of a disciplined and proud civilization. But wars did not care about legends. Alliances shifted, enemies multiplied, and one final betrayal shattered her empire in a single terrible year. Now, Seralith stood alone. She was no longer dressed in royal armor. Instead, she wore a simple robe, its faded fabric a quiet insult to what she once represented. Heavy restraints circled her wrists, not because she was dangerous, but because no one trusted what remained of her authority. The interstellar council chamber was vast and cold. Rows of alien delegates watched her from floating platforms, their eyes filled with boredom, mockery, or thinly hidden satisfaction. To them, Seralith was not a queen. She was a reminder of a war already forgotten. The High Arbiter's voice echoed across the chamber. Queen Seralith of the Aurelian Dominion, it said, using her old title with clear sarcasm. Your empire no longer exists. Your people are scattered. Your fleets are destroyed. As agreed, you will be transferred as part of a diplomatic gesture. Seralith lifted her chin. Even now, she refused to bow. A gesture, she repeated calmly. Yes, another council member said, clicking its mandibles in amusement. To humanity. A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. Humans, a young species, new to interstellar politics, physically unimpressive compared to most galactic powers. The council considered them useful laborers, minor soldiers, and eager diplomats desperate for recognition. Giving a fallen queen to humans was not mercy. It was a joke. They will not know what to do with you, one delegate added. But they asked for something of symbolic value. We found you suitable. Seralith felt no anger. That emotion had burned out long ago. What remained was a deep, quiet weariness. If that is all, she said, her voice steady. Then release me to them. The council was already losing interest. Guards moved forward, unlocking her restraints only to replace them with transport seals. Moments later, Seralith was escorted away, her footsteps echoing through halls that once would have shaken at her presence. She did not look back. The human ship waiting for her was small. Seralith studied it from the docking bay with open confusion. It was clean, well-maintained, but lacked the grand design she associated with warships or royal vessels. No towering banners, no intimidation displays, just a simple hull marked with the human insignia. This, she thought, is where legends go to disappear. A human officer waited at the airlock. He was tall by human standards, with short dark hair and calm eyes. His uniform showed signs of use, not decoration. He carried no weapon in his hands, and his posture was respectful but not fearful. Queen Seralith, he said, placing a hand over his chest in a human gesture. I am Commander Elias Ward. On behalf of humanity, welcome aboard. She blinked. No mocking tone, no hesitation, no forced politeness. You may call me Seralith, she replied. I am no longer a queen. Elias met her gaze. With respect, that is not for us to decide. That answer unsettled her more than chains ever could. As she stepped onto the ship, she waited for confinement, interrogation, or isolation. Instead, she was shown a private cabin. It was modest, but comfortable. The door remained unlocked. You are free to move within the designated areas, Elias explained. If you need anything, you may ask. And if I try to leave? Seralith asked. He considered the question honestly. We would ask why. Then we would talk. That night, Seralith sat alone, staring at the soft light panels of the cabin ceiling. For the first time since her empire fell, no one had ordered her to be silent, small, or grateful for survival. It made sleep impossible. In the days that followed, confusion replaced despair. Humans did not parade her as a trophy. They did not hide her away either. Some crew members recognized her name and looked at her with curiosity. Others simply nodded politely and returned to their duties. Elias visited often, not to interrogate her but to listen. He asked about her people's history, their traditions, their failures. He never interrupted, never corrected. When she spoke of mistakes she had made, he did not argue. When she spoke of victories, he did not dismiss them. "Why are you doing this?" Sarilith finally asked during one conversation. "Doing what?" Elias replied. "Treating me as if I still matter." Elias leaned back slightly. "Because you do." She studied his face, searching for deception. She found none. "You know they gave me to you as a joke," she said quietly. "They expect me to fade into obscurity." Elias nodded. "Yes, we're aware. And yet you accepted." "Yes," he repeated. Sarilith felt something shift inside her chest, an emotion she had not allowed herself to feel in years. Hope frightened her more than hatred ever had. The Human Leadership Council met in private. Screens filled with star maps, political reports, and intelligence summaries. Some advisors questioned the decision. "She has no empire," one said. "No fleet, no leverage." "She has history," another countered. "And memory." Elias stood before them, his voice steady. "They discarded her because she lost. We study losses, so we don't repeat them." "What if the council retaliates?" someone asked. "Then they'll have to explain why helping a displaced leader threatens galactic peace," Elias replied. Silence followed. Humanity had been underestimated for generations. They knew the cost of being dismissed. They had survived by learning, adapting, and standing beside those others abandoned. Sarilith was not a weapon. She was a lesson. On the observation deck, Sarilith watched stars pass slowly by. Elias joined her, offering a simple drink designed for her species. "You didn't have to accommodate me," she said. "We wanted to," he answered. After a long pause, she spoke again. "If you continue this path, they will come for you." Elias smiled faintly. "They always do." She turned toward him. "Why help someone already erased?" Elias looked out at the stars. "Because history is written by those who show up when it's easier not to." Sarilith felt her posture straighten without realizing it. Her voice, when she spoke next, carried a strength she thought long lost. "My people are scattered, afraid, leaderless." Elias met her eyes. "Then perhaps it's time they stopped being alone." Far away, the Interstellar Council dismissed humanity's actions as foolish kindness. They did not realize that something dangerous had already begun. Not a war, not a rebellion, but the slow, unstoppable return of a legend because one human refused to treat a fallen queen as a joke. The first message reached the Interstellar Council 3 days after Queen Sarilith boarded the human ship. It was short, calm, precise. "Humanity formally objects to the erasure of Aurelian refugee territories." The council chamber fell into stunned silence. Then laughter followed. "They dare object?" one delegate scoffed. "On what authority?" another asked. "Because of the fallen queen?" a third mocked. To them, humans were overstepping their place. The objection was dismissed without a vote. But humanity did not withdraw it. On the human ship, Sarilith felt the change before anyone told her. The crew moved with sharper focus. Conversations grew quieter. Security protocols increased, though no one explained why. Elias continued to meet with her. But now there was urgency beneath his calm voice. "They ignored us," Sarilith said after reading the council response. "Yes," Elias replied. "As expected. You knew they would." "We hoped they wouldn't," he corrected. "But hope doesn't replace planning." Sarilith studied him carefully. "You are preparing for consequences." "Yes." She turned toward the star map hovering beside them. Tiny markers showed systems once under her rule. Most were marked inactive. A few still held scattered survivors. "My people will suffer if they punish you," she said quietly. Elias met her gaze. "They've already been suffering." The truth of that struck her deeply. For the first time in years, Sarilith was invited, not ordered, to speak. Human analysts asked about her people's fleet designs, not to mock them, but to understand them. Engineers listened as she explained ancient defensive formations that had protected entire systems with fewer ships than anyone thought possible. These patterns were considered outdated, one human officer said. They were abandoned, not outdated, Sarilith replied. Because leaders forgot why they worked. Humans did not dismiss her words. They asked more questions. She realized something unsettling. They were rebuilding her legacy not as it was, but as it should have been. Across human space, quiet messages began to travel. Human diplomats reached out to isolated Aurelian enclaves. They did not promise protection or restoration. They offered food, safe routes, and communication relays. Most Aurelian survivors did not believe the messages. Some did. Small ships arrived at human stations. Families stepped onto platforms with fear in their eyes. They expected detention. Instead, they were welcomed. Sarilith watched one such arrival from a distance. An elderly Aurelian bowed deeply when he recognized her. "My queen," he whispered, voice trembling. "We thought you were gone." She wanted to tell him she was still broken, still uncertain, still ashamed. Instead, she placed a hand over his in the old way. "I am here," she said. "And so are you." Word spread quickly. Hope travels faster than fear, the council noticed. Reports arrived describing human movements, refugee gatherings, and reconstructed command networks. The laughter faded. Irritation replaced it. "They are consolidating," one delegate hissed. "Over a dead empire," another replied. "Empires rise from less," the High Arbiter said coldly. A formal warning was drafted and sent to human leadership. "Cease unauthorized involvement with non-recognized entities." Humanity replied within the hour. "We do not abandon displaced populations." The message was shared across multiple networks. Sarilith read it twice. "They are painting targets on themselves," she said. Elias nodded. "We've had targets before." Late one night, Sarilith stood alone in a quiet chamber, staring at an old Aurelian emblem, projected in soft light. It was cracked, faded, imperfect. It still stirred something inside her. Elias entered without speaking. "I don't deserve this," she said without turning. "Deserve what?" he asked. "Their faith, your effort, my people's hope." Elias paused. "Do you think leaders only deserve loyalty when they never fail?" She was silent. "My species failed many times," he continued. "We learned that falling doesn't erase responsibility. It defines it." Sarilith turned toward him slowly. "What if I fail again?" "Then we stand up again," Elias said simply. Something inside her broke open, not pain, but strength. The council's patience ran out. A fleet was dispatched, not officially hostile, but unmistakably threatening. Its destination was a human-controlled corridor, near an Aurelian refugee route. The message was clear: stop, or be stopped. Human command rooms filled with quiet determination. Defensive systems activated. Civilian transports were rerouted. Sarilith was brought into the command chamber. "This is where you step away," she said firmly. "They will not hesitate." Elias shook his head. "This is where you stand with us." She looked at the gathered humans, soldiers, analysts, officers. None looked away from her. "You once commanded fleets," Elias said. "Not because you were flawless, but because others believed in you." Sarilith inhaled slowly. Then she straightened her spine. "Open the channel," she said. The room froze. "You want to speak to them?" an officer asked. "Yes," Sarilith replied. "As myself." The channel opened. Her image appeared before the approaching fleet and the watching council. She did not shout. She did not threaten. "I am Sarilith of the Aurelians," she said calmly. "I acknowledge my defeat. I do not deny my failures. But my people still live. Humanity has offered them shelter, not conquest." Her gaze hardened. "If you move against them, you will not be silencing a relic. You will be attacking those who chose mercy." The response was immediate. Mockery, threats, dismissal. The channel closed. Sarilith exhaled. "I tried," she said quietly. Elias placed a hand on the console. So did they. The first shot was not fired by humans. A council escort ship fired across a refugee corridor, forcing transports to scatter. Panic spread. Systems flared. Human defense units moved instantly, not to attack but to shield. Old Aurelian formations came alive under Sarilith's guidance. Ships aligned, overlapping defenses, redirecting energy and space itself. Council commanders hesitated. This formation, one muttered. It's impossible, another said. It wasn't. It was forgotten. The refugee convoy passed safely. No human ship fired a single aggressive shot. The message was louder than violence. Afterward, silence filled the command room. Sarilith's hands trembled slightly. Elias looked at her with something close to pride. You led, he said. She swallowed. I remembered who I was. Outside, across the galaxy, recordings spread. A fallen queen stood beside humans. Refugees were protected. Council authority was challenged not with destruction, but resolve. The joke had stopped being funny. In quiet corners of space, Aurelians whispered her name again, not with grief, but belief. And in the halls of power, a realization took root. Humanity had not taken a fallen queen for pity. They had given her a reason to rise. The galaxy did not sleep after the refugee corridor incident. Recordings of the event spread faster than official reports. Analysts replayed the footage again and again, slowing it down, studying every movement. The formations were old, very old. Yet they worked with terrifying precision when combined with human technology. The Interstellar Council was no longer laughing. They defied a warning fleet, one delegate said sharply. Without firing a single attack, another replied. That makes it worse, the High Arbiter said. It makes them look righteous. Righteousness was dangerous. It inspired others. Orders were issued quietly this time. Containment. On the human command station, Elias studied the incoming data with a tired expression. Fleet movements were increasing near human borders. Trade routes were being restricted. Diplomatic channels were growing cold. They're squeezing us without open conflict, an officer said. They want us to blink, Elias replied. Sarilith stood nearby, hands folded behind her back. She could feel the pressure building, like the moments before a storm. They are isolating you because of me, she said. They're isolating us because we didn't bow, Elias answered calmly. That was always going to happen eventually. She turned toward him. You could still end this. Hand me over. Say you were misled. The room went quiet. Elias faced her fully. We don't trade people to make threats disappear. Her chest tightened. Once, entire worlds had burned for her name. Now a species was risking its future just to protect her dignity. For the first time, Sarilith was afraid not of losing power, but of being worthy of it. The Aurelians continued to arrive. Not in fleets, not in triumph. In small ships, damaged ships, some barely holding together. They came because they had heard her voice. Human stations became centers of reunion. Families found each other after decades. Old warriors bowed with tears in their eyes. Children stared at Sarilith with quiet awe, having grown up on stories that never promised her return. She spoke to them often. Not from a throne. From the floor, she admitted her failures. She explained her choices. She did not promise revenge or conquest. Only survival. Only unity. And they followed her anyway. Human observers took notes, amazed. She's not commanding them, one analyst whispered. She's reminding them who they are, another replied. The council made its move when diplomacy failed. A coordinated seizure of Aurelian supply routes was announced, justified as stabilization operations. Human escorts were ordered to stand down or be removed. Removed did not mean destroyed. It meant erased from influence. Elias convened a private meeting. If they take those routes, an officer said, the refugees starve. They're betting we won't respond, another added. Sarilith listened silently. Finally, she spoke. They are using law as a weapon, she said. I once did the same. All eyes turned to her. There is an answer they do not expect, she continued. One that does not require force. Elias raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. The broadcast went live across multiple systems, not from a council chamber, not from a warship, from a human civilian station. Sarilith appeared on screen, unarmored, unguarded. Her posture was calm, her voice carried clearly. I speak to the galaxy not as a ruler, she began, but as a witness. She spoke of the war, the betrayals, the council's silence. When her people fell, She did not accuse. She explained. I was called fallen because I lost, she said. But millions lost more than I did. They lost homes, families, history. She paused. Humanity did not ask me to fight. They asked me to live. The message spread like fire. Citizens of neutral worlds began asking questions. Independent systems opened humanitarian corridors. Council authority weakened not through rebellion, but doubt. The council reacted with fury. She's turning public opinion, one delegate snarled. Then silence her, another demanded. The High Arbiter raised a claw. Carefully, the attempt came quietly. A council-aligned strike unit slipped through a trade lane under false credentials. Its mission was simple: extract Seralith, alive. The human station alarms sounded too late for comfort. Security teams moved fast. Civilians were evacuated. Elias rushed toward the command hub. Seralith felt the shift immediately. They're here, she said. Yes, Elias replied. And this time, they're not pretending. Explosions rocked the outer docking ring. Not devastating, but deliberate. Surgical. A message. Stand down. Elias turned toward her. We can move you to a safe sector. She shook her head. No, she said firmly. Not again. She activated an old command signal, one thought useless without a fleet. But the Aurelians answered. Ships moved. Not attacking. Positioning. Human defense lines shifted instinctively, adapting around them. The strike unit hesitated. Too many variables. Too much coordination. This was no longer a rescue mission. It was a stand. In the heart of the station, Seralith stood beside Elias as reports flooded in. They're retreating, an officer said in disbelief. They didn't even fire on the core, another added. The council unit withdrew, their objective unfulfilled. Across the galaxy, the message was clear. The fallen queen was no longer unguarded. Afterward, Seralith retreated to a quiet chamber, hands shaking. The weight of what had almost happened pressed down on her. Elias found her there. I endangered your people, she said softly. Again, Elias sat across from her. You stood your ground. That's not the same thing. I never wanted to lead again, she whispered. Leadership doesn't wait for permission, he replied. It shows up when people need direction. She looked at him, eyes steady. Then I will not hide anymore. The council called an emergency session. Humanity was formally declared a destabilizing influence. Sanctions were approved. Military oversight was discussed. But beneath the words was fear. Humanity had taken a symbol meant to be discarded and turned it into a cause. Seralith had become more than a queen. She was a mirror reflecting the council's failures back at them. On a distant human world, a young Aurelian child watched Seralith's broadcast replay. Is she really our queen? The child asked. An elder smiled softly. She is something better. What? She is proof we were never finished. As stars drifted past the station windows, Elias and Seralith stood together in silence. They will come again, she said. Yes, Elias replied. And next time, she added. They will not come quietly. Elias nodded. Then neither will we. Far across the galaxy, alliances shifted. Records were rewritten, and whispers spread through ancient halls of power. The joke had become a challenge, and the legend was no longer rising quietly. The galaxy waited. Not for a battle, not for negotiations, not for miracles. It waited for a reaction. Humanity had spoken. Seralith had led. And the Interstellar Council had no idea how to respond. The first move came quietly. Scout fleets appeared along key trade routes, not to attack, but to secure them. Civilian and refugee ships traveled safely under human protection, guided by Aurelian navigators who remembered the old ways. The Council called these actions defiance. Humanity called them duty. Seralith watched from the bridge of the main human command station. Her robes were simple, her crown gone. But her posture was like steel. She no longer needed symbols. She had regained authority in the way that mattered, through action, courage, and presence. Another fleet is approaching from the eastern corridor, Elias said. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed tension. They've brought warships, armed and ready. Seralith nodded. and yet they do not know what they face. The council fleet entered the corridor. It was impressive. Sleek ships, armed with the latest weapons. Thousands of crude vessels in formation. Their commanders expected an easy engagement, expecting humans to retreat or surrender their queen. They were wrong. Humans and Aurelians had prepared. Defensive formations stretched along the corridor like living armor. Ships moved with precision that only centuries of combined knowledge could produce. Aurelians called out maneuvers. Humans executed them with flawless timing. Every strike, every shield adjustment, every warp jump was calculated to protect, not destroy. Sarilith spoke into the comms, her voice steady and clear. This corridor is under my command. Any aggressive action will be met with calculated response. You may leave safely, or you may test our resolve. The council commanders hesitated. No one expected a fallen queen to speak with such authority. No one expected humans to follow her so completely. Fire on them, one alien shouted. No one obeyed immediately. The first shot came, not from humans, not from Sarilith. A council ship fired a warning volley at a convoy carrying refugees. The humans had anticipated it. Shields rose, ships shifted positions, and every Aurelian maneuver Sarilith had taught decades ago was executed to perfection. The convoy passed unharmed. Hold fire, she commanded. It was not a threat. It was fact. The council's warships hesitated again. Their weapons, though powerful, were trapped by the coordination of humans and Aurelians. Every move Sarilith made was anticipated and countered. Every potential path of attack was blocked or redirected. The council fleet's commanders realized they were not dealing with a fallen queen, nor with humans who would bend to threats. They were dealing with strategy, foresight, and unity that could not be broken by fear or intimidation. Hours passed like minutes. The galaxy watched. Independent systems transmitted live footage of the corridor. Citizens of multiple worlds saw the Aurelian refugees moving safely through enemy lines. Humans protected them without unnecessary aggression. Every calculated defensive move, every protective shift, was proof that humanity and Sarilith had become something greater together. Even minor incidents were broadcast. One human pilot rescued a drifting Aurelian child after a misfired council blast. Another rerouted damaged ships to safe zones. The precision and care stunned observers. By nightfall, the council fleet had withdrawn, not defeated by violence, but by strategy, resilience, and the undeniable moral strength of their opposition. The galaxy was shocked. In the command room, Sarilith exhaled slowly. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. They know now, he said. The galaxy sees your worth. She shook her head. Not mine, humanity's. He smiled faintly. And you helped them see it. For the first time in decades, Sarilith allowed herself a small smile. She had thought she was irrelevant. She had thought the galaxy's judgment had destroyed her. Instead, she realized she had been a catalyst. She had reminded the galaxy what courage, honor, and leadership looked like even when a species underestimated you. The aftermath was quiet but profound. Reports of the corridor incident spread across independent systems. Citizens debated the power of humans. Analysts noted that a single species, long considered insignificant, had transformed a fallen queen into a symbol of hope. Entire councils began reconsidering their stance on both humanity and the Aurelian people. Small Aurelian settlements sent messengers thanking Sarilith and humans for protection. They brought gifts, histories, and old knowledge long thought lost. She walked among them, listening, learning, and remembering. Each story strengthened her resolve. Each tear of gratitude restored her purpose. One elder approached her quietly. Queen Sarilith, you were given to humans as a joke, he said softly. And yet you returned to us stronger than ever. She placed a hand over his and nodded. No. Not I alone. Humanity stood with me. They gave me reason to rise. Council representatives requested an audience. Sarilith accepted. Not as a fallen queen pleading for mercy, not as a powerless relic, but as a leader whose presence demanded respect. The chamber was tense. Aliens who had once mocked her whispered among themselves. Humans accompanied her, standing silently beside her. They made no threats, but their presence was undeniable. Sarilith spoke clearly. "I do not seek war. I do not seek revenge. My people survived when they could not, and humans protected them. Let this be your lesson. Underestimating those you deem weak can lead to consequences you cannot control." The council fell silent. Her words were not threats, they were truth. And truth carries weight. Across human space, the story spread. Every independent system, every neutral observer, every small colony that had dismissed humans, took notice. Humanity's reputation soared. The species that once walked quietly among galactic powers had stood firm, protected a fallen queen, and reshaped the perception of the entire galaxy. For Sarilith, the transformation was personal. She returned to her people not as a shadow of her former self, but as a queen reborn. She spoke to assemblies of Aurelians, rebuilt fleets, restored governance, and reconciled fractured communities. She was no longer the fallen queen. She was the queen who had been discarded, but who returned stronger than any legend the galaxy had recorded. She often walked among humans quietly, observing them at work, learning from their resilience, and appreciating their courage. Elias remained by her side, not as a servant, not as a subordinate, but as a partner in vision. Together, they built a future that blended human innovation and Aurelian heritage. The final challenge came months later. A new council fleet approached not in anger, but in diplomacy. They had learned, they had witnessed, they had no choice but to acknowledge the new reality. Sarilith and Elias met them in a neutral sector. No warships engaged. No weapons fired. Only words were exchanged. "You have changed the galaxy," one elder council representative admitted. "We misjudged both your species and her leadership." Sarilith replied calmly. "You judged based on weakness. Humanity has taught us all that strength is not only in arms, but in loyalty, courage, and the choice to stand by what is right." The council representatives nodded. They offered recognition of Aurelian territories and rights. Humanity requested only autonomy and continued protection for displaced peoples. The galaxy recorded it all. As stars moved past the command station windows, Sarilith looked out and thought of the years lost. She thought of failures, betrayals, and moments when she had believed herself irrelevant. And yet, here she was, not just alive, not just leading, but a legend. Elias joined her quietly. "You look different," he said. "Stronger," she replied. "No," he said. "Wiser." She laughed softly. "Perhaps humanity helped me see what I had forgotten." They stood in silence, watching the stars. The galaxy had tried to discard her. It had tried to mock humanity, but neither had yielded. Together, they had rewritten the rules. Together, they had shown that courage, strategy, and heart could reshape worlds. In the end, the fallen queen was no longer fallen. She was reborn. She was remembered. She was unstoppable. And humanity, quiet and underestimated, had become the force that made it all possible.